This is a Bloody Vegans production.
So I think like a lot of people, I grew up with an innate love for animals. I grew up in the countryside and, I'd walk down the road. It was a very, very rural area, very isolated. And I would walk down the road and there were sheep and cows and horses, even little pigs as well, ready at the fence, waiting to say hello. And they were so friendly. I really it brought out this love for animals in me for a very young age. And I grew up with animals in the house as well. I had dogs, cats, horses. And I felt very safe around them, very peaceful. And I just saw them as my friends. So I went vegetarian when I was 15 because I hadn't really made that connection between animals and food up until then. And it wasn't until there was videos on Facebook circulating about, they were kind of exposing the farm industry and where your food actually comes from. And I remember bawling my eyes out and watching these videos, and I just thought immediately I need to make a change. So I went vegetarian. But it wasn't until I went to uni and I did a geography degree, and we had a lot of modules on food geographies and where your food comes from. And it was the same as where your resources come from. That was a lot of what my degree was about. And they showed us again videos of the dairy industry this time. Whereas previously I'd only known about the kind of meat industry, and they went into, the pros and cons of it, and they showed us more videos. And again, I burst into tears in the middle of the lecture hall. And I was like, I cannot contribute to this as well. I don't want to have anything to do with it. And I decided to make the switch to become vegan. And that was when I was 20. So I've been vegan for 5 years now. And best decision I've made.
That's fascinating that you were shown those kind of things at uni as part of your course.
Yeah. I was really surprised because they said, we're going to show some videos. Some people might find it disturbing. You might want to leave. And I was like, oh, what's this going to be? And I was kind of intrigued because I was like, I didn't know. And then I sat and watched it and I was like, oh, I wish I left the room. But at the same time, I didn't, because then it really pushed me again to make a change. So I'm glad in a way that I did sit down and, absorb it. And really, it was harrowing, but it was effective.
Yeah, well, was that their intention? Were they coming at it from a sort of a plant-based food systems kind of point of view?
I don't think so. They covered a lot of different things. They covered a lot of, the falseness of certification labels and things like that. Some farms will sometimes say, oh, this is organic beef from Angus Farm in Aberdeenshire, for example. But then that farm won't even exist. And they were kind of going into the falsities behind some labeling, and you can't really rely on where your food is coming from because a lot of the industry is so corrupt. And they also went into it wasn't just about animals. They were also talking about, when it comes to people and the ethical, non-ethical labor as well. So it was covered a lot of vast range of topics. And I think they kind of just wanted to open our eyes to be a bit more critical and think about where our resources come from and how we get the things on our plate. And yeah, I'm really glad that I took that module because it really opened my eyes to a lot of different issues.
Did it have a similar reaction on your peers?
A few people had to leave the room because they were uncomfortable, but unfortunately a lot of people weren't that phased. And I don't know if that's because, there's a big farming community up in Scotland and people are so used to it and they're not maybe as exposed to why it would be wrong. And I think a lot of people tend to view animals as, they're meant to be food. So it doesn't really impact them as much when they see the process behind what goes on. It's as if they already are aware. So it was a bit disappointing that they didn't really feel the impact. But I know that some people got really upset and they had to leave the lecture hall. But those are people I didn't know. But maybe it's had more of an impact on them and kind of urged them to make a change.
Yeah, sure. From a practical perspective, did you find it fairly straightforward?
Oh yeah, switching to veganism, I thought it was so fine because I went vegan and about 5 years ago. There was even though there's so many more options now, I still felt like there was a lot of options to kind of help me as a stepping stone, alternative meats and cheeses and all kinds of things like that. And there was always at least one vegan menu option and things when I went out to eat. I didn't find it as, especially because I'm someone who I'm not a fussy eater. I eat anything. So I think that maybe helped a wee bit. But I find it pretty straightforward and practical. And my mum was also vegetarian before I went vegetarian. So she's kind of slowly introduced me to sort of different meals that I can have and things like that maybe other people didn't really have that introduction in terms of someone in their family who's cooking for them and making meals. So it kind of gives a bit of familiarity and gives you a bit of a stepping stone going forward.
Yeah. So when did the sort of the vegan society come along in your life? You know, what was the journey from going vegan at uni to I want to actually do this for my living, if you like?
Yeah. So when I was little, I always knew I wanted to work for a charity. Like from day dot, I was like, I want to work for a charity. I want to leave the world a better place. And I came into it. And I was actually planning after I did my geography degree, I went on to do a master's in environment and development. And we really looked at a lot of policy. And again, we looked at the Scottish National Food Strategy and we were doing some work on like research on that. And we presented our findings in Parliament. And it was really, really interesting to kind of contribute to that sort of element of how do we as a nation move forward with regards to our food. How do we move forward with the kind of strategy of, okay, what's good for our health, what's good for our environment, what's good for people in general. And it was really interesting to kind of have an impact in the political sphere. And I thought, I would quite like to work in policy. And after finishing my degree, I said to myself, I want to go traveling. I'm desperate. I want to take a year out. I've been, studying for 5 years. I deserve it. But throughout doing my degrees, I'd always put on little notifications on job hunting sites for like campaigns and policy assistance for charities. And then the Vegan Society role came up and I was like, that's just perfect. I was like, I can't say no. It's just the perfect job for me. I want to work in campaigns and policy. I want to work for a charity. I want to help people, animals, the environment. I was like, there's nothing that would be more rewarding than having this job that is so in line with my values. And like, still to this day, I feel like so lucky to have gotten that role because I feel like work doesn't feel like work for me. I'm so passionate about it that it feels like I'm always fulfilling my day so well, if that makes sense. So yeah, that's how I ended up here.
That's awesome. It's awesome. It's great when you get to align these things, isn't it? It's sort of it never feels quite right when you have to go through a period where no disrespect to anyone who isn't fortunate enough to be in that position, but it's great when it aligns when you do get to kind of work with the thing that you're so passionate about.
Yeah, absolutely. Like sometimes my friends will say, I don't want to go to work today. And I'm like, I have never had that feeling, which, I feel very grateful that I can say that.
Well, hold on to that.
Yeah.
So give us a little overview. Take us through the Conscious Choices campaign, because that's obviously what you're here to talk to us about today. So it'd be good to understand a little bit about it, the background of it, what it is. To sort of deep dive us into Conscious Choices.
Yeah, for sure. So Conscious Choices is our brand new campaign at the Vegan Society, and we essentially want to use it to show that veganism it goes beyond food. It's more than just a diet, and that you can show compassion to animals in all areas of your life. And the way that we kind of want to go about this is just educating and empowering people to be able to choose products that are aligned with their values and make more conscious choices when it comes to shopping for things, and that isn't necessarily food. So this year we're looking at cosmetics because we want people to be able to choose health, hygiene and beauty products that are kinder to animals and take animals into account. And there's a lot of confusion about cosmetics, and I'll go on to this in a minute, but that's kind of why we decided to focus on cosmetics to begin with. And this campaign is for everyone. It's for people at the start of their vegan journey or people who just aren't familiar with cosmetics and veganism, and also non-vegans who consider themselves to be animal lovers who haven't really thought about this before, because it is sometimes like a lesser known subject, or it's lesser talked about. So we kind of really wanted to shine a light on this and present this information about veganism, cosmetics, how you can buy products that are kinder to animals in a digestible and very straightforward way.
Yeah, why specifically cosmetics at this point? Was it an element of that felt like the area where there's perhaps the most scope for confusion in people's minds?
Yeah, it's definitely a very complex issue. And the main reason that we kind of catapulted ourselves into thinking, okay, we need a campaign focus on cosmetics is because we've done work on and research on beauty products in the past, and we launched our vegan beauty report. And that, as part of that, we did a survey to the public, and that survey found that 32% of consumers still aren't very confident when it comes to identifying animal-derived ingredients in cosmetics. So we thought, okay, that's a large chunk of the population that are very confused about cruelty-free and vegan labeling and don't really know what they're looking at when they pick up a product and what is all those ingredients like. And we thought people need to be able to be empowered and informed so that they can make choices and not feel like they're making the wrong decision for them. So yeah, we just kind of wanted to shine a light on the different terms of cruelty-free and vegan and empower people to shop more confidently for products when it comes to cosmetics.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. The labeling, like, it definitely can be super confusing. Like, can you talk us through a little bit of the sort of the state of play at the moment? What are the kind of things that people are looking out for in terms of the labeling? What are they presented with in terms of the choices, the options? Doesn't have to be an exhaustive kind of list, but it's just interesting to understand, like, you know, what does it look like when you walk into the average kind of retailer?
Yeah, I think the problem is that, so I can start with sharing the definitions of, you know, between the two. So cruelty-free essentially means that a brand does not test the ingredients or the final products on animals. But veganism, if something's labelled as vegan, it goes a step further. It's in the fact that it's cruelty-free and it doesn't test on animals, and there's no animal-derived ingredients found within the product as well. But the problem is when you go into, you know, a supermarket or something like that, there's a massive range of products, and some of them won't have any labeling on them whatsoever. You know, there's no legal requirement to label products. And that means that because of that, a lot of products are open to mislabeling. So if a lot of people obviously don't know the difference between vegan and cruelty-free, that means a lot of brands as well might not know the difference between vegan and cruelty-free. So they're open to labeling their products as vegan, or they're open to labeling them as cruelty-free. But they might be neither because they might misunderstand the definition. Or some might even want to just gain access to a vegan audience without actually doing the groundwork and figuring out, okay, is my product actually vegan? Is it cruelty-free? For example, you know, a product might have plant-based ingredients, but it might be tested on animals and vice versa. So I think the problem is that unless a product is third-party certified, for example, the vegan trademark, if something's registered with the vegan trademark, you know that it's not been tested on animals by the company or on its behalf, and there's no ingredients found in it. So I think people aren't really aware that the safest way to know that a product is completely free of like harm from animals is by looking for the third-party certification labeling. And I think people can get a bit confused and think, oh, that says vegan on it, that means that should be fine. But that product might test on animals, or that says cruelty-free on it. Oh, but does that mean that there's no cruelty involved? Like, that must mean that there's no animals in it. But then really that's not the case. So there is a lot of things that make it a lot more confusing for people.
Yeah, so as it currently stands, if you haven't got one of those, you know, particular Vegan Society certification, there's nothing stopping anybody writing vegan on anything, right?
Exactly, and that's the whole issue, and that's the sort of thing that we want to inform people about, because we don't want people to be misled. It's not fair, you know, if someone's to buy a product and then they find out, oh, I've paid for that, and then I've not realised what I'm paying for. So we kind of want to make it as clear as possible for people. And one way to do that as well is that we want to kind of raise awareness on the different types of ingredients found in products, because if people aren't sure, they can always have a look into the ingredients list themselves, and learn about those so that they can pick up something and think, oh, okay, I know that isn't free from animals, or I know that does, where that comes from. So I want to avoid that, and they could put it back on the shelf and go for something else instead.
What are those kind of ingredients? What's the sort of things that are out there that we should perhaps look for? I know, like, you know, it's a different issue, but when you're looking for, say, something that's got, like, if it's a food product, so you're looking for sugar. The word sugar is often hidden in lots of fructose and bits and pieces like that with O's on the end, and lots of other kind of terms for it. Similarly with palm oil, you can find that there's, palm oil is not just called palm oil, it's obfuscated kind of purposefully, if you like.
Yeah.
Is it a similar world in cosmetics?
Yeah, definitely. I feel like as well with cosmetic products, unfortunately, they seem to have so many ingredients within them. It can be very overwhelming when you pick up something and the list just goes on and on and on, and they've got really like funny names that many people don't understand, like the scientific name of them. So there is a lot of ingredients. Most common, well-known ones are things like shellac, which is, it's found in nail polish, which is like crushed beetles that give that kind of pigmentation and colour to the nail polishes. And then you've got beeswax, which is found in like lip balm, and that obviously comes from bees. But then there's a lot of lesser well-known ingredients that are found across a lot of different products. So you've got things like estrogen, which is a hormone taken from the urine of pregnant horses. And that's found in a lot of anti-aging creams. And then you've got things like collagen, which is a protein found in the bones and tissues of cows. And that can be found in a lot of creams and serums. You've got tallow, which is an ingredient found in the fat of farmed animals. And that can be found across a lot of different products, like from foundation to soap to eye makeup and more. So there's a lot out there. And I know that's really overwhelming and it's a bit like harrowing, but the good thing is that there is plant-based alternatives for all of these. So, instead of estrogen, you can look for a product that has phytoestrogens, which is derived from grapes and soybeans and various nuts. And then for collagen, you can look for proteins that come from soya and almond oil. Same with tallow. A lot of the plant-based alternatives kind of come from oils like pumpkin seed oil and olive oil, coconut oil. So there's always alternatives out there. And I know this is a lot of information to be throwing out there. Yeah, but we've kind of found a way to simplify this. So we've made a free shopper's guide for people to basically, you can go onto our website and download it, and it's really a short little pocket guide of what's vegan mean, what's cruelty-free mean, and there's a little QR code on there, and people can scan that and it'll take you straight to a list of all these ingredients and different alternatives to look out for, so that, you can always have it on hand. You can always refer back to it the next time you're in the shops, and you don't have to think twice about what it is you're purchasing. You can have a look and think, okay, estrogens in that, I don't want to pick that up. Phytoestrogens in that, okay, I'll go for that instead. And it's the same with like beeswax, you can get cannellina wax instead. So yeah, we're trying to make people more aware of this, so that, the knowledge is power, and we want people to feel like they can purchase the products that more consciously and more aligned with their values. But we know it's a lot of information to take in and it can be very overwhelming. So our pocket guide is kind of a little shopper's guide that makes it very digestible, found all in the one place, and very straightforward for people. Because even myself, I found it overwhelming to begin with.
This is a question that is probably I accept like this might be an anecdotal kind of answer, but do you find that at the Vegan Society that you get a lot of folks who are curious about living a vegan lifestyle, who perhaps are coming in through this route? Perhaps their first entry point into understanding veganism was actually that they didn't realize there was a huge amount of cruelty involved in the cosmetic industry. I know we tend to talk about people coming in through kind of animals, environment, health, but I wonder if there's a specific around people talking about cosmetics as their first port of call, that's where they, instead of the shocking dairy video, that their first discovery point was, I didn't realize that this perfume, this cream was tested on animals.
Yeah, I think that it's very rare. I think people are more aware of like the testing side of things, animal testing, because there's a lot of organizations out there that raise awareness of that, but they don't necessarily raise awareness on the ingredients within the products. So I think a lot of the time it's very rare for people to kind of come through that route of like, I've discovered this about animal products being inside, animal ingredients being inside products. And yeah, I wouldn't say it's the first port of call, but what we have noticed since, sharing all of our content on social media and on our website is that we've had a lot of feedback of people being really relieved that it's being spoken about. And a lot of people saying that they it's the first time that they've actually thought about it. And I even had some of my friends, when I shared it, because I like to share all of our content that we post on my own social media, and a lot of my friends will say to me, I had no idea about that. Like, I'm definitely going to make more conscious decisions going forward. Like, I just didn't have a clue. So there's been a lot of like positive feedback, and I think that now that it is being discussed and put out there, I think a lot more people might start to engage with us on that. And, you know, what more can we do to spread the word? What else can be looked into? Like, do we need to look into household cosmetics? Do we need to look into fashion? What other things do we do in our everyday life that, you know, we need to kind of really critically analyse and take further and, you know, expose that knowledge to everybody?
Do you think, therefore, it is an area we should perhaps be talking about a little bit more within the sort of vegan community as a potential entry point? Because it seems to me that when I speak to people about this kind of subject who are not vegan, that it feels a lot easier to convince somebody that that is wrong, or that there is a better way to be doing that when it comes to cosmetics, when it comes to you know, whether it be perfumes, whether it be creams, whatever it is, that seems like almost more of a no-brainer for people. That it's like, well, no, I get that that's wrong. I don't agree with animal testing, etc. It feels more difficult than perhaps if you're talking to them on a food basis. Almost, it's almost like an open door. And I wonder whether we should be talking a bit more about that. And obviously, you folks at the Vegan Society are, but I wonder whether we should be talking a bit more about that as a kind of potential entry point. And then, like you say, it then opens a door to, well, perhaps I should ask more questions about other aspects of my life. Maybe I should ask questions about my food and so on. I wonder if you think that that's a sort of an untapped methodology, if you like.
Yeah, definitely. I think that you make a good point. I think that a lot of people probably do. I think it's because it's less spoken about. That's probably why it's more of a shock factor to them when they find out about these sort of things. And maybe they think, oh, that's shocking. I don't want to participate in that. And maybe that's because it is less spoken about and it is more of a shock. But yeah, it's definitely an area that can be explored further. And I think that should be talked about more in general. And yeah, I think that there's more that can be done for sure, and not just in the cosmetic sphere, but in, like, as I said before, like across all parts of our life. There's always more that can be done to be kinder and more compassionate in all of our everyday lives and our everyday choices. But I think the reason that we kind of want to take it one step at a time is to not overwhelm people. And I think the fact that we are having a positive response so far and people are, you know, being open-minded and they are being surprised at the information that's being shared, I think that goes to show, like, people are receptive to the information that's being put out there, and you don't want to overwhelm people with too much information sometimes, because then that can kind of be a bit counterproductive and people think, oh no, I need to switch off, it's too much. And I think a lot of the time people tend to do that with the food industry, and it's way more ingrained in a lot of people's lives when it comes to food, as opposed to things like cosmetic products. And I think that's just because they haven't thought about it, and it's not been discussed before. And it's not as, I would say it's more hidden, so people aren't aware.
Yeah. Are you getting more non-vegan folks engaging with the Vegan Society's post? Obviously, you mentioned when you repost some of the Vegan Society's content, you're getting friends and so on commenting on them. Are you seeing that at the Vegan Society, that there's more non-vegan folks engaged in this particular topic than perhaps other campaigns?
We won't know for sure until we've collated, you know, kind of all the feedback because the campaign's running up until the end of June. So we won't know until we've kind of had a look at everything all in the one go at the end of the campaign. But we've not had any negativity towards it. We don't know for certain yet. We've not kind of conducted that analysis to see if the feedback is coming from non-vegans or vegans yet. But all we know is that it's been a lot of positive feedback. But it's definitely something that we'll look into to kind of inform us for future work and future plans on the campaign.
Yeah, absolutely. In terms of just to really hone in on the definitions, just the cruelty free and the vegan definitions, and the kind of difference between, like you say, it can be confusing, and there's not perhaps the legislation certainly over the word vegan to be really nailing it down. Is there examples? Again, it might be anecdotally, but where cruelty free, the definition might just mean not tested on animals, but actually contains lots of animal products. So is there that level of confusion out there? And therefore the logical conclusion is look for a trademark, essentially. Is that the kind of advice?
Yeah, definitely. I think if you want to be safe and, you want to be confident in your choice and make a more conscious decision, then you know that opting for a product that is third party certified is going to give you a lot more confidence. They've done the groundwork for you. And the thing is that brands who are certified, they're very proud that they're vegan. They want to shout about being vegan. So if we go back to that idea of walking into a supermarket and you can't tell which product is, cruelty free and vegan, then it kind of might suggest that their values aren't at the forefront of their brand, and they might not have the same values as you, because a lot of the vegan and cruelty free brands, they want to shout about it. They're very vocal because they're so proud to be vegan, and they want that to be plastered all over their branding as well. And often these brands as well, they use a 360 approach, it tends to be. So they tend to, have products that are good for your skin, good for animals, good for the planet as well. And you'll find that often when you go onto their website or something, that you can kind of look further and dig deeper into, what their background is, what they're all about. And you'll find that they want to invest so that people can be confident in their choice because their values align with your values. So I think it's definitely the safest way. But again, we appreciate that every product you're looking at might not have a third party certified trademark. So again, just informing yourself of the ingredients, and having just maybe double checking that before you buy is always another way to sort of counteract that and make sure that you're not just purchasing something by guessing and hoping for the best just because of a brand has written the word vegan on it or written the word cruelty free on it.
So yeah, it'd be great to kind of offer some folks advice, particularly for people starting out. Like you said, it's a minefield. It's really difficult. We've obviously looked at the vegan trademark as a great place to start. What other advice would you offer to folks who are kind of looking into this aspect of their lives, perhaps maybe for the first time, or maybe even they're just revisiting it and they're kind of seasoned vegans, but they want to just make sure that they're doing everything that kind of aligns with what their values kind of dictate?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, the first thing I would say is don't panic because it's a lot of information to take in. And what you can do is I would recommend using up all the products that you have first because we don't want to waste them. You've already purchased them. So maybe use them up. And in the time that you're using them up, that's when you can do a bit of research and kind of look for products that you know that you might like. And then you can confirm if they're vegan and cruelty free, purchase them when you're ready. And that means you've got a big chunk of time. Hopefully you've got a lot of your cosmetics left to use. You've got more time to kind of think about, okay, what am I going to purchase next? But honestly, it's important to show yourself compassion as well, because we want to show compassion to animals, but it's a journey and it's about learning as you go. And for a lot of people, this might be, listen to this podcast, it might be new to them and they might not be aware. So it's about giving yourself a bit of grace and realizing, okay, I'm learning this for the first time. And just take it one step at a time. And if that's, if you've learned that you can look for the vegan trademark to help you, or look for animal ingredients that are, have plant-based alternatives. If you want to download our free shopper guide, and have that on hand all the time to help you, have something to refer back to and give yourself a bit more confidence, then that's probably the best way to go about it. Just making gradual swaps and being kind to yourself and making sure you're not feeling overwhelmed. I think that's probably the best way to go about it. And we've got loads of resources on our website, which is vegansociety.com/conscious choices. So if you have any questions, you can reach out to us there or look through our resources. And yeah, just make sure you're giving yourself a bit of grace and slowly taking it one step at a time, because yeah, as I said, it is a journey. We're all learning as we go, and there's no pressure to, chuck everything out and start all over again, because yeah, we don't want to be wasteful. We want to learn as we go.
Is conscious choices going to continue, do you think, into other areas?
Yeah, definitely. I think we're hoping to expand it and take it a bit of a step further, and really explore different areas of our lives where we can make more conscious choices and show compassion, because we can always do that. There's always room for compassion.
Helen, it's been great chatting with you about it. We'll make sure we pop everything in the show notes in terms of the links, etc. But I appreciate your time, appreciate what you're doing over at the Vegan Society. I'm sure it's going to be an awesome campaign for lots of people, and hopefully an eye-opener too. So thank you.
Thanks, Jim. It's been great to come on, and thank you for having a chat with me. I've really enjoyed it.
This is a Bloody Vegans production.